எதன் கண்ணே நிலையாகி இருந்திடும் உலகமெல்லாம் எதனதெல்லாம் எதனின்று அனைத்துலகும் எழுமோ மற்றிவையாவும் எதன் பொருட்டாம் எதனால் இவ்வையமெல்லாம் எழுந்திடும் எல்லாமும் எதுவேயாகும் அதுதானே உளப்பொருளாம் சத்தியமாம் அச்சொருபம் அகத்தில் வைப்பாம். எப்பெருங்கண்ணாடியின் கண் இவையாவும் நிழலாக எதிரே தோன்றும் இப்பிரபஞ்சத்துயிர்கட்கெல்லாமோ இதயமென இசைப்பதேதோ செப்புதி என்றே வினவும் ராமனுக்கு வசிஷ்ட முனி செப்புகின்றான். இப்புவியின் உயிர்க்கெல்லாம் இதயமிரு விதமாகும் எண்ணும் காலே கொளத்தக்கதும் தள்ளத்தக்கதுமாம் இவ்விரண்டின் கூறு கேளாய். அளத்தற்காம் உடம்பின் மாரகத்தொரிடத்திதயமென அமைந்த வங்கம் தளத்தக்க தோரறிவா கார இதயம் கொள்ளத்தக்கதாமென்று உளத்துட்கொள்ள அஃதுள்ளும் புறமுமொள துள்வெளியில் உள்ளதன்றாம். நமோ ரமணா. In this the Upasana Prakaranam, we are coming to the verses from Yoga Vasishtam. Once again, we are going to have 4 verses now, 21, 22, 23 and 24. And then after the 25th, 26th and 27th again from Yoga Vasishtam. So these first four, 21, 22, 23, 24, we are going to split 2 each in view of the content of meaning also. So this is a dialogue between Sri Rama and Vasishta Muni in Yoga Vasishtam, and the questions are from Sri Rama. There is an interesting episode in the translation from Sri Lakshman Sharma, where he quotes one incident about how Rama, who is an avataram, who is a jnani, who has nothing to know, how does he act like all this? In fact, the reference is to one of the later verses, probably verse number 26 or 27. But we can consider that dialogue right here to put it in context, because all these verses are going to be by Sri Rama to Vasishta Muni as question and Vasishta Muni responding. The incident goes somewhat like this, that in the hall of Bhagavan, where Bhagavan is seated, many of them have some bi-dialogues or dialogues amongst themselves when the time is so suitable, I suppose. One such dialogue goes that I think it was Professor K. Swaminathan who asks how can it be said that Sri Rama needed all these instructions, though he himself was a avataram? And this reaches the ears of Bhagavan. And Bhagavan asks, who is asking this? Who is having this doubt whether Rama needed all these instructions or not? Who asked this question? Asks Bhagavan. And someone, probably not K. Swaminathan sir, someone responds, it is K. Swaminathan sir who wants to know. It's Professor K. Swaminathan who wants to know. And Bhagavan says that then these instructions are for you, who is having the doubt whether Rama asked and Vasishtha Muni responded, or it happened in some other way. But you have the doubt now, and Vasishtha Muni's teachings are more than adequate to solve those doubts, and that is more than adequate for us to proceed further in sadhana. There is no need to inquire what happened then, who were the participants, whether these incidents happened as stated or not. But in an exemplary manner, the teachings contained in these verses address our own sadhana, our own upasana, our own worship of the self. So that is how we have to consider these verses. The first verse is Epperunkanadiyin kan ivayahum nidalaha edire tondrum. So Sri Rama asks, he says that the Hridayam, which Vasishtha Muni has mentioned in one of the earlier instructions about two other characters. It is the Upashanti Prakarana there, and in which a story is narrated by Vasishtha Muni. And at the end of that story, there is this mention of heart, and that is where Sri Rama asks, please tell me, what is this heart that you are mentioning about, the spiritual heart? To give a context to the spiritual heart, this spiritual heart or heart is mentioned as spiritual heart itself more than 250 times in talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi. Sri Munagala Venkatramaya refers to this particular heart, Hridayam. It's 285 times, but I suppose some of them could have been for the physical heart. So I have said more than 250 times the word heart is used in Sri Munagal Venkatramaya's account. So one can gather some sense of the importance Bhagavan gives to Hridayam. And more so because it gives us a link, as we saw in the earlier satsang, that it gives us a link from the physical to the transcendental. A physical lakshana or concentration point or focus point is also given by Bhagavan from his own experience, which we saw some devotees have even placed their hands in the right side of the chest and felt the palpitation of the spiritual heart. And Bhagavan, from there he takes us to the transcendental. But here Vasishtha Muni clarifies as to what is what. So the two verses translated by Sadhuvam Swamigal, we see in English. To Rama who asked, tell me, in which great mirror do all these worlds appear in front of us as a reflection? And what is that which is declared to be the heart of all beings in this universe? The sage Vasishtha said, when considered, the heart of all beings of this world is of two kinds. That is the first verse. Listen to the characteristics of these two. One which is fit to be accepted and one which is fit to be rejected. Know that the organ called heart, which is situated in a place within the chest of the limited body, is that which is fit to be rejected. And the heart, whose form is the one consciousness, is that which is fit to be accepted. That heart exists, that one consciousness exists both inside and outside, but it is not that which exists only inside or only outside. Now, since it's a dialogue, we can just go for the essence of it. And that's why I have selected both the verses together for the presentation today. That Sri Rama is asking, you are mentioning something as heart, which I feel is a mirror in front of us, within which all these worlds are reflected as mere shadows. What is the nature of this heart? Then Sri Vasishta Muni says, in all living beings, the heart can be of two types. One is the physical organ that is placed within the chest cavity, that means well within the body, and that is to be rejected from contention. And there is the other heart which is of one consciousness, that or arivakaram, that is to be considered for vichara, and that one spiritual heart, that one consciousness, it exists both inside and outside, but not merely inside or not merely outside. That is the statement of Vasishta Muni. Now this Perum Kannadi, the Hridayam, is mentioned as Perum Kannadi. Now, in which the whole creation is a mere shadow. The same idea is carried by Adi Shankara in Sri Dakshinamurti Stotram. There, Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari. Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari is mentioned. Now, the relationship, when we go into the meaning and purpose of calling the Hridayam as the mirror, in which the whole world, all the worlds, all the objects are merely shadows reflected in that mirror. The purpose of which, of that analogy, we can understand when we look into the Dakshinamurti Stotram, how Adi Shankara has used the mirror and images. So, there are some four qualities which the mirror and the images they stand for. That is what we have to clearly understand. That is the relationship between Hridayam and all the objects of all the worlds, including our own body and mind and its contents. All these are mere shadows in that mirror called Hridayam. The relationship between these two is clarified as the mirror is the Adhishtanam and the images are all the supported. Adhishtanam means the support or the ground on which all the other existences appear. Similarly, the Hridayam is the support. Without the Hridayam, there cannot be any objects. So, while we were beginning this evening's satsang, there was one clear expression by one of the group members about how difficult it is to hold self, hold the Hridayam. In Bhagavan himself says initially it will appear almost impossible. To F.H. Humphreys, he says, initially it will be almost impossible to hold the one responsible for all this, the knower or the seer. But you should persist. And how we can persist is this adhisthana. This adhisthana means without the hridayam, without the self, none of the objects can appear. So whatever may be the object, whatever may be the nature of object, we can easily come to the hridayam, we can easily come to the self, because without the self, without the hridayam, no object can appear. Without the mirror, no shadows can appear. What is the clue Bhagavan gives? The clue Bhagavan gives is irrespective of the object. If you say, for whom is this object? Immediately it will come for me. Who am I? Will take us to the hridayam. Therefore, though it is difficult, though it is in fact nearly impossible, who says? Not any one of us. It is Bhagavan himself who says to one of his chelas, one of his disciples, he says, initially it will appear almost impossible. But he does not leave us just by saying it is nearly impossible. He gives us a very good clue as to how that impossible can be made possible. And he gives us a very logical flow. How does he do that? The adhisthana. The hridayam or the self is the adhisthana, is the support, without which nothing can appear. Let it be anything. They cannot appear without the self. What is the method to know this? Irrespective of the object, whether it be something in some, these are all Pitrupaksha times, some ancestor's thought, if you ask for whom, then that world and those objects are for us, for me, for the Atma. Who am I? Takes you to the Hridayam. If you think of something else, let us say some other topic we are reading from science. For whom is this, if you ask? It is for me. Who am I? Any topic in psychology, for whom is this depression? This depression is for me. For whom is this elation? This elation is for me. Therefore, the mirror, the adhisthana, is always present and is always available. Of course, it takes practice, and it arulum venume. Bhagavan's grace is represented in our practice, says Bhagavan. Even if you practice it once, that shows that grace has already entered us. So the first relationship between the mirror and its images, or the hridayam and all the objects in all the worlds, is that the hridayam is the adhisthana and the objects are all dependent or the supported. Then the hridayam and the mirror, they are satyam, they are unchanging, whereas the images are all changing. That is the second relationship between the mirror and the images, the hridayam and all the objects of the world. So first is the mirror is the adhisthana, hridayam is the adhisthana. Second, the mirror is satyam and the hridayam is the satyam, whereas all the images are asatya and changing. Then the third is asangatva. Asangatva is that the mirror can remain independent of the objects, whereas the objects cannot remain independent of the mirror. So the hridayam, the consciousness, the one consciousness, can be independent of and is independent of the various objects, and none of the objects can remain independent of the hridayam or the self. So first relationship is mirror is the adhisthana, mirror is satyam is the second, Mirror is asanga, asangatva. It can remain aloof and unattached. And the last quality is that the mirror is advitiya. Since all of them, the images are of changing nature, they are as good as non-existing. Gaudapadar is known to have said in his Karika, that which is not before and that which will not be after some time is as good as not present even now. That which was not present before some time and that which is not going to exist after some time is as good as not present right now. And Bhagavan brings that not present to two deep sleep states. In earlier deep sleep, if it was not there, and in the next deep sleep, it is not going to be there. Whatever is there is actually not there. So, the mirror or the hridayam is the advitiya vastu. So, these are the four qualities that we can remember, which will help us in practice. The adhisthana, the satyam, satyatva, the asangatva, and finally the advitiyatva. These are the four qualities why Sri Rama is referring to the hridayam as a huge mirror in which all these worlds are mere images reflected on them. Now, this while I was going through one of the commentaries on Sri Dakshinamurti Stotram, one of the later speakers, I think, he has come upon a beautiful way of explaining how the sensory objects, the sensory impressions are merely some vibrations in the mind. So he takes the movement of sound. Suppose we hear a sound. Suppose you hear the sound from the microphones present in your instrument in front of you. What it does is that it displaces the air columns in between the ears and the instrument in such a way that the eardrums pick up those vibrations, and it appears there are some small and long hairs, some clear or something like that inside the ears. The short ones pick up different sounds, the long hairs pick up different sounds, and they communicate it to the brain. And in the brain, the synapses, they fire. And we say we know from this side, but from that side, the firing of the brain is actually some vibrations in the mind. That is the point where scientists don't know whether the consciousness is created by the brain cells or the consciousness creates the brain cells. So that is a point of research that is going on and will probably go on for some time. But the rishis and munis, they say that the brain is dependent on the mind, but the mind can function independent of the brain. That is what the rishis and munis find, and that is our experience in dhyana, that the mind is the source in one relative way and brain is acted upon by the mind. But if you take the hridayam to be communicated from the mind, we get the feeling of the reflection. But how is the world projected if you take? How is the world projected from the mind through the brain to the entire Stula Loka? There, Dakshinamurti Stotram helps us with one more example of the dream. That is, Adi Shankara not only refers to Darpana Drishyamana Nagari, but Nijantargatam Atmani Mayaya, as though through the Maya, as Yata Nidraya, as in sleep, when you dream, you project the dream out of you, and you are a separate object in the dream, and the rest of the objects are apart from you, and the whole thing is a projection from you. Similarly, from the Atma, the whole creation is a projection. So the one more analogy of dream is given in addition to the mirror to clarify how this whole creation is a projection from the Hridayam. And in one of the talks, Bhagavan says, the entire creation is present in a pinhole in the Hridayam, and that pinhole is closed for those who are in search. But those who are putting constant attention of Vichara on that hole by Atma Vichara, that hole opens once and for all, and one is able to abide in the light of consciousness, the one consciousness, which is the Hridayam, says Bhagavan in one of the talks. But we are going ahead of ourselves. So coming back to this point in hand, that we have covered how Sri Rama uses the analogy of mirror and images for Hridayam and the entire creation. Now for that, Vasishtha Muni says that yes, this Hridayam can be of two kinds. One is the physical Hridayam, the blood pumping organ within the body, which has to be set aside for enquiry purposes. But there is another Hridayam which is Or Arivakaram. It is of the nature of the undivided consciousness, which is what we have to actually hold and seek, says Vasishtha Muni. That Hridayam, Bhagavan gives us a live instance of what is the relationship between the spiritual heart and the physical heart. This is, we have discussed this some sessions before in Ulladu Narpadu. This is the account of Bhagavan along with one of his disciples, I think it is Vasudeva Sastri, where he is coming back to Virupaksha cave after having a bath in Pachayaman Koil, and he is coming back. In between there is a place called as the Tortoise Rock, and he gives the account that he is susceptible to, Bhagavan has these fainting fits, he says. But this time the fainting fit was very strong, and he could actually feel the physical heart, the blood pumping organ actually stop, and the body starts turning blue. And in the other description side, he says a white screen started covering the world view, the objects from one side to another, and completely covered the world view. There was only the white sheet of consciousness in front. But Bhagavan says the spiritual heart was going on. The primal force, the I, this Purana was going on. It had not stopped. The physical heart had stopped, but this Purana had not stopped. And he says he could feel Vasudeva Sastri crying, holding the body. Now, in a few minutes, 15 minutes or so, there is a firecracker like of experience, and from the spiritual heart, the primal force once again starts the physical heart. From the spiritual heart, there is an energy which goes and restarts the physical heart, and the blood starts pumping again. And Bhagavan says to Vasudeva Shastri, come, let us go. And they go. But that is the relationship that the physical heart has with the spiritual heart. We are going to see while reading talk number 205 that the spiritual heart is not only the one consciousness, it is also the residing place for the Ishvara Shakti, the primal force, which gives energy to the physical heart, which gives energy for breathing, which gives energy to the mind, to the intellect, and to the ego. So, the spiritual heart is the one consciousness. It is also the source of or residing place of the primal force which gives life to everything. And that is the anubhavam or relationship between the spiritual heart and physical heart that Bhagavan gives us in his own words. This is referred to as the tortoise rock experience or the second death experience. Here Vasishtha Muni gives us the nature of the spiritual heart as one consciousness which is present both inside and outside. Now, inside and outside, Vasishtha Muni doesn't say whether it is referring to the Sthula Sharira or the Sukshma Sharira. But it is inside and outside. The spiritual heart is inside and outside. Is there any reference in Bhagavan's interactions with his disciples where this last point of crossing the division as inside and outside, this last point in that particular context and journey, need not necessarily be for everyone. Someone else may have a different last point. But since Vasishtha Muni is referring to as inside and outside, the Hridayam transcending the inside and outside and covering everything, I am referring to that as one of the last points in the journey that a jiva can have before merging into the heart, where the division as inside and outside is erased. There is this account of N.V. Gunaji in Face to Face and in one more book, I think in Fragrant Petals or one of the other collections of experiences of devotees. N.V. Gunaji in the Face to Face, there is an account. There is a little bit more detail in the account in the other version, but the essential portions are the same. That N.V. Gunaji is one of the biographers of Shirdi Sai Baba, but that's not the primary information that we have to deal with. He comes to Bhagavan in the month of January of 1935. So he comes and he narrates to Bhagavan his desire in the form of a verse from Jnaneshwari, the writings of Sant Jnaneshwar, where I'm merely paraphrasing. You can go and see the face-to-face book for the actual quote, where Sant Jnaneshwar prays to God, if at all you want to give me anything, let me be rid of this I am this body idea, and let there be only the mind which is completely absorbed in the self, and on and on. And Bhagavan's face, Gunaji writes, was so bright that it was a sight for divine beings to behold. Bhagavan is so happy when the right desire or the Subhecha is expressed by the devotee. When we say to Bhagavan, oh Bhagavan, please give me only this, that let me have the ability to practice self-inquiry and reach your feet and reach the spiritual heart. He will be as happy as the sight described by N.V. Gunaji. Says, Bhagavan's face was a sight for gods to behold. And Bhagavan says, get in, take as much as you want, get inside. And Gunaji starts practicing the getting inside of self-inquiry, and he meets sometime in between. But the second account, the important account, is in 1949 when the Mathurubhuteshwara temple Kumbhabhishekam is about to take place. So a period of about 14 years have passed, and I suppose with his spiritual background, it has been a period of intense practice of self-inquiry and Bhagavan's grace and teachings. And he comes to that point where he asks Bhagavan, oh Bhagavan, I am able to get in. I am able to see the Hridayam. the one consciousness. I am able to see the thought-free consciousness. But how to stay in? How do I abide? Is the question he asks. After 14 years of sadhana, the question from that sincere seeker is, O Bhagavan, in my turning inward, as you said, I am able to see the Hridayam, I am able to feel the thought-free consciousness, but I am not able to abide. I am jumping out of it. How do I stay there? How do I stay within? Is the question. And Bhagavan says, he laughs, says the time has come. Therefore Bhagavan laughs and says, get rid of the I am the body idea. If I am the body idea is not there, where is inside? Where is outside? Only with reference to a limited object, there is inside and outside. Get rid of this concept, I am the body, and the concepts inside and outside will also drop away. And that is the teaching of Vasishtha Muni, that there is no inside and outside for the spiritual heart. We find that it is neither inside alone nor outside alone, or as Kanakamal says, that the concept of inside and outside fall away, within and without fall away. Whichever way we consider it, in the thought-free state, these final divisions also evaporate and vanish in that one consciousness. Of course, there is this aside that not only that these great ones and the margas are so intertwined. If you see talks with Ramana Maharshi, more than 285 references are there to the heart. If you take letters, you will find the term Hridayam and very few references to that. But each path is great and holy in its own nature. The Bhakti and Jnana are equally intertwined and none to claim any superiority. But when the intellect is having so many doubts, which is doubting so many things, self-inquiry or the Hridaya Vidya seems to be the direct approach for the modern intellectuals. But coming back to the point, how the margas are intertwined, we find the biographer of Bhagavan, B.V. Narasimha Swami, at one point tells Bhagavan, I am still, after all this practice of Atmavacharam, I still feel like doing bhajans and singing and all that. And Bhagavan tells, or he takes permission and he goes on his tour to the north and he finds Shirdi, and he writes that in Shirdi he gets his God realization, B.V. Narasimha Swami. And I had only read that account initially, that he had got God realization in Shirdi and that he had constructed many temples also for Shirdi Sai Baba. So that doubt used to occur in my mind, that how he had to go all the way. And from inside I would get, it is strange, before self absorbs all that, it gives some answers also. So it is up to you. Now the answer I got was that don't you think that the Sai Baba devotees need self-inquiry? So I have sent B.V. Narasimha Swami sir there. That used to be the answer I used to get. Then I read the account of N.V. Gunaji, who was a biographer of Shirdi Sai Baba, but come all the way to Bhagavan, practiced self-inquiry and got his clearance, final approval also, along with the Matrubhuteshwara temple Kumbhabhishekam day or around that. He gets the clearance from Bhagavan with a laughter. If the I am the body consciousness is removed, where is inside? where is outside? You are the Hridayam. You are that one undivided consciousness is the answer. So these paths are not really separate. The consciousness is love. Love is consciousness. As in one of the talks for Paurnami celebrations, we heard a talk in which the mention was made that the attention that with which we turn inward is love. That same attention is also awareness. So in the Hridayam, all the paths are there. The Karma Marga, Bhakti Marga, Yoga Marga and Jnana Marga. That's why Bhagavan says, Hrutstale Manaha Swastata Kriya Bhakti Yoga Bodhascha Nischitam. Once you come to the heart, then all the paths that you have followed stand fulfilled. Now, to get a detail of the nature of heart, it's always good to go to Bhagavan. As I said, there are many references in talks. You can go through that. I am going to read one account. Mr. Cohen had been cogitated. This is talk number 205. Because I don't know the connection between the primal force and the one consciousness is there in the talk, so we can meditate on that. Mr. Cohen had been cogitating on the nature of the heart. If the spiritual heart beats, if so, how? Or if it does not beat, then how is it to be felt? Maharishi, this heart is different from the physical heart. Beating is the function of the latter, the physical heart. The former, the spiritual heart, is the seat of spiritual experience. That is all that can be said of it. So it is the seat of spiritual experience. Just as a dynamo supplies motive power to whole systems of lights, fans, etc., so the original primal force supplies energy to the beating of heart, respiration, etc. So the heart is the seat of spiritual experience. It is also the seat of the one primal force. Devotee, how is the I, this Purana, to be felt? How is the I consciousness felt? Maharishi, as an unbroken awareness of I. Not I, body, I. No. It is the, without inside, outside, the unbroken awareness of the I. So, what is the experience of this Purana? It is the one unbroken awareness of the I. It is simply consciousness. Devotee, can we know when it dawns? Do we need some certificate from somebody, or will we know it ourselves? Maharishi, yes, as consciousness, you are that even now. There will be no mistaking it when it is pure. When the I is pure, absolutely no way you can mistake it. Whatever we know now is only because that is present and that is allowing us to know. And when we know it, it will definitely clarify by its own presence. Then, now how to get that spiritual experience? We find in the earlier accounts of Bhagavan dealing with the vasanas, residual impressions of Payani Swami and Amma. Bhagavan waits till the ego cannot do anything. It is near the death. It is near the point of leaving this body. At that time, he applies this Purana. He keeps because he is that current. Bhagavan is the Swarupa itself. Some bird flying somewhere, it falls into Bhagavan's lap and gives up its life. And to the people around, Bhagavan says, it is liberated. It is now in moksha because it has come into that field of spurana. Bhagavan's body is the blessing this entire creation has received, in this world has received, that spurana has appeared there. And that bird coming, flying and falling into his lap, Bhagavan says, this is now, it has been liberated. What he did with keeping in the hands and absorbing, that bird, whoever that Siddha was, we don't know, fell and into his lap. And the funny part in that incident is, Bhagavan says like that, and one of the devotees, a great one, the name slips me, he was the cousin of our one of the Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan's cousin or nephew. He was one of the great devotees, Rajeshwarananda, I think. He was one of the great devotees. He was still looking somewhere else when Bhagavan was saying. And Bhagavan asks him, did you hear what I said? It has got mukti. Then Rajeshwarananda turns and tells, oh Bhagavan, this is your past play. This is play for you. This is the game that you play. You give mukti. Did you not, as Rama, give mukti to Jatayu? This is your nature to give liberation to beings. So what is so surprising in it? That is why I did not turn around. Says, so we come back to Rama and who Rama is, how he gave mukti to Jatayu and to Ahalya and to many. So these instructions are for us, that if we are humble and still the ego, as would happen at the moment when it is ready to leave the body, when it has no desires of this world which is appealing to it, when we can do that now by stilling the thought, by stilling the I, then that seat of spiritual experience will reveal itself to us. That current, which is the spurana, which is the I, which is the primal force in relationship to the body, but which is the one undivided consciousness as the Hridayam, will take us to the heart. Bhagavan says, hold that current and be still. Do not ask anything of it. Hold that current and be still. And that current too will quieten itself like the fire lit in a camphor. It will remove the I am the body idea completely, and it will also quieten itself, says Bhagavan. So, following his Upadesham and with his abundant grace, it is left to us to practice as best as we can the self-enquiry where the ego is stilled and we are ready to feel Bhagavan's hands in our head and heart, even now. Internally, when we take the thought and the I thought to the source, we can feel Bhagavan's one hand here. And when the who am I completes its journey to the Hridayam, we can feel Bhagavan's another hand here. It is always present. One hand here, another hand here. And self-enquiry, Bhagavan makes it very easy by saying, there is no object that can exist without the self, which will become very clear when you ask, for whom is this waking state? For whom is this dream state? For whom is this? If we ask, we get back to the Adhisthana. With Bhagavan's immense grace, let us sit in practice for 10 minutes. Revathi, you can set the time for us.
Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as the self in all beings. What to say of Bhagavan's grace of the heart manifest as Ramana? What to say of his grace that has flowed today as literally as vast as the heart? Because we have been taken on this journey today, we have been given glimpse of Bhagavan's own experience in the tortoise rock. We have been given the question answers by the devotee, the sincere sadhakas. We have been given the experience given to mother, to the blessed crow, the whole gamut of Bhagavan's biography in relation to the spiritual heart. Then Bhagavan's compassion and reassurance. Bhagavan's compassion, which makes him tell Humphreys, yes, it is not easy. That is his compassion, because he knows he is not speaking from his point of view. He who says, Ayye atisulabham, Anma Vidyai Ayye atisulabham, also tells Humphreys it is not easy, that it is a journey which has to be made, but there is no option to making this journey. If we are to leave it saying it is difficult, then there is no answer at all. If a child says it is difficult to crawl or stand or walk, there must be some difficulty at that point of time. A child falls number of times, but it is natural to move. Again, in our personal discussion, Nandakumarji was telling me very beautifully that Bhagavan has covered the entire creation in Ashtakam. The journey of the entire creation to the heart has been covered in the last verse of Ashtakam, where he says that every being is actually irreversibly moving towards the heart only, despite all the ups and downs of their journey, whatever may be there, whatever the difficulties may be there. Because Bhagavan says there, Oru pala vadigalil udalilum nilladu, tadai seiye nilladu, even if it is obstructed, even if it is whirling around, whatever way it is being thrown about, it will not stop. So this journey will not stop. This journey back to the heart will not stop. That is the assurance, and that is the reason why the self, which is all pervading, has taken the form of Ramana to draw us back to itself. That is the assurance, the reassurance which we have got today. And of course, we have been taken to Sri Rama, we have been taken to the Dakshinamurti Stotram and the very beautiful pointers which are coming from the analogy, which actually covers succinctly the entire gamut of normally what we talk about in the Advaita Vedanta as the discrimination between the self and the non-self. The Anatma Vastu and the Atma Vastu, the 4 points were clearly highlighted and given to us. The point that the self is the Adhara, the Adhisthana. And this has been covered for us during the course of the earlier verses in Anubandham also. When we turn to the Chidakasha, when we have seen that it is the senses and then the mind, the senses are the basis, the adhara for the world, the mind is the adhara for the senses, the self is the adhara for the mind. The Chidakasha, that chit, that light of consciousness. So we were taken back to that adhara aspect was pointed out, and the aspect of it being the reality, that alone being real, everything else being unreal. By very definition, like a dream is unreal. We call it unreal because it passes away. And Nandakumarji gave us the pointer that Bhagavan says, in one deep sleep it is not there, the next deep sleep it is not there. Then how do we call it existent? So the Satya aspect of it was pointed out, and most importantly, the Nisangatva of it was pointed out, that it is not dependent on anything. And from various perspectives, when we see Bhagavan's life, we can see all this. We can see Bhagavan as the Adhara for everything. We can see Bhagavan as the truth He alone is. We can see that, and we can see how independent He is. Even in His life, we can see how He is totally non-dependent on anything, not on food, clothing, shelter, nothing. In fact, when Ganapati Muni asks him, says a few rupees, mentioning a few rupees, the very minimal, and says, would that not be enough for a man to remain happy? And Bhagavan says, for happiness, what is required? So it is totally independent of everything, and the Advitiya nature of it, which has been emphasized for us in Bhagavan's Ekashloki of Kevalam Brahma Matram, that was also brought home for us to meditate upon. So that is the final, of course. The Advitiya nature is, of course, the final aspect, and that is what he came to in the full circle when he explained Gunaji's experience, that there is neither out nor in. Bhagavan, when he talks about his own death experience, he says, I recognized that current, that I was that current, including and transcending the body. So it includes the body and it transcends the body. So it is not merely outside and it's not merely inside. But for us, as again it was highlighted in Gunaji's episode, and that is why Bhagavan has given us the support of the inside the body, which also was referred to in the earlier verses by Nandakumarji, saying that we can take the support of this place of the spiritual heart which Bhagavan has given to go within. And as Sadhuam Swami says, Ingu kanda piragudan irpadellam avan mayam, to go within, and then from there to recognize that it is all enveloping by abiding in that truth within. So this entire gamut has been literally put into a nutshell for us, and each of these points is something we can do manana on. Just take one point and do manana on it deeply as our support to self-inquiry. And Bhagavan, again this point Bhagavan highlights in his Ekanma Panchakam. He says, Tannu virka tana chada udalan tannul irpada தானுன்னு மன்னவன் சித்திரத்தின் உள்ளுளத சித்திரத்து காதார வஸ்திரம் என்றெண்ணவான். தன்னுள் தனு இருக்க, when the body is within the self, one imagines that the self is within the body, and one thinks that the screen on which the pictures are there, they are within the screen. In that he refers to the Adhara and he refers to the Advitiya nature in his Ulladu Narpadu, where he says, Chittiramum Parpanum Serpadamum Aroliyum Attanayum Tanam Avan. So this was the beautiful journey which Bhagavan allowed us to take today through the Anubandham. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramanaka.
Namo Ramanaka.